Hi, my name's Leighton Jen. I'm the director of development for the American Documentary and Animation Film Festival, also known as AmDocs. Today we have one of our alumni, Erika Houle. Did I pronounce that right?
Cool, but close, yeah.
Cool. I'm all right. We went over this before, but I still messed it up. She was one of my favorite people from last year's festival, and she had, unfortunately, I missed it, but she had this fascinating documentary, Dust to Light. So, Erica, can you talk to me about your documentary, what it is about, and how you came across this topic?
Yeah. So Dust to Light is about approaching cleaning as a meditative act. That it's something we need to do. We often, many of us will at least despise maybe at least one chore, if not many or all of them. And I met some folks who are Zen practitioners. And how I met them was actually my husband shot a documentary about tea called The Meaning of Tea all around the world and
Oh,
ended up it was as a cinematographer and shot another one. Met this Zen monk guy who's you know from Ohio, but anyways, he has a tea center, and so I had studied some tea ceremony there, and then also was introduced to zazen meditation, like a type of meditation practice. And so I was hanging out there and I was recording an audio book and I had a microphone in front of their faces and there was a camera laying around. And so I couldn't help myself but film some cleaning going on. And I came back with the footage, gave it to a colleague of mine. Um, I was teaching at a college in Long Island at the time. And the editing professor, I was like, take a look. Is there something here? And I thought it would just be like a little puff piece for the tea center, but he's a magician, Justin Andrews, and he, a great documentary editor. You can't like. There's not enough money in the world to buy one. They just have to be born. And so he turned it into a really beautiful little piece with my little offering of here's some leaves, and then he turned it into a whole thing. So yeah, that's Dust to Light, and that's how it came to
oh.
be.
So you're gonna have to give me a second here. My internet connection is a little unstable, so you have to bear with me a little bit. I didn't realize I was having this issue, but
Uh-oh.
um,
Connection
this
trouble.
is this. Can you talk to me about the feedback you've got
Mhm.
from this? Because uh, I was just so fascinated by this, and also for you personally. Well, actually, let's start with that question. What kind of feedback did you get from the film?
Hmm.
Are we back?
Oh, there we are. There we go. Good.
Okay, sorry about that. I got a message that my internet's a little unstable. And I didn't realize that, so I apologize. I'm not quite sure.
All good.
Um, I don't know if you caught my question, but what kind of feedback did you get from the film? Because I think it's such a interesting, fascinating topic, and I'm just so intrigued. Uh, I'm just so intrigued by it.
Thank you. Yeah. So, we just made this cute little thing. It felt good to us. We put it out into the world. AmDocs was one of the very first places that anyone got to see it. And um, yeah, all of the places it's screened, the consistent feedback has been that people watch it. And if they already love cleaning, it starts to help them understand why they love it a little more, right? It adds a
Hmm.
little more interest or layers of understanding of your own self and your own life. And then, so people have said things like that.
Hmm.
Um, or if, if they're sort of on the other end of the cleaning spectrum where they relate to it in a way that it seems negative, a burden, whatever, that it often inspires people to go, oh, it makes me want to clean, or, it helps me appreciate washing the dishes more, which, that's a wonderful thing. If you have to wash by hand or even just doing the dishwasher, people always manage to despise it. But, but yeah, so people have said that it seems to really help them. So that's encouraged us, with the film for sure.
Now, what about you personally? What was your relationship with cleaning before you did the film, and then how did it change your relationship with cleaning?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. So I was always that kid where my mom never had to ask me to clean my room because I don't know if I made my bed every day, but everything was exactly where it needed to be. I was like, this doll is here because of this very specific reason, you know. um, but somehow I had picked up the story about my life that I hated doing the dishes because that was what I had to do as a kid, and and I was, a college kid who was a good roommate. I wasn't a total slob, but I carried that burden with me of hating doing the dishes. And um, it's something I had to do. I live in New York. I don't have a dishwasher. I've never had a dishwasher since I moved out of my parents' house as a kid. So I've always had to do my dishes by hand as an adult. And so yeah, the dishes were something that before the film was made, I learned. Was listening to a talk. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Zen master who passed away
Mhm.
past few years, and he talks about washing the dishes and just being very present with it. And there was just a light bulb moment for me where I was like, why am I deciding to hate a part of my life? I could decide to enjoy it, and then all of a sudden this 15, 20, whatever, even if it was 3 hours a day, instead of hating it, I could enjoy it. So so there's that element that led up to the film. um, Not cleaning because everything had to be my way, but more of like a just appreciating life, caring for the things in our life. And not to get too personal with my husband and I, but he's a little on the messy side, and I'm on the tidy side. And I think that's pretty common. The top three things that people argue about as a couple in long term relationships are finances, how to raise the children if you got them, and
Mhm.
chores. We don't fight about finances. We don't currently have children. And so it came household chores. And that's not what you're really fighting about, though, right?
Right.
So, um, but yeah, so I think that the process for me of making the film and showing it and talking about it to people has really changed for me to appreciate also his way of being, and that like it's a beautiful chaos for him. He knows where everything is. He has his workspace where that works for him. So
Mhm.
you just have to find that balance where you give each other the space you need. You both compromise and adjust. It's just like basic life lessons that might sound really corny, but
Mhm.
many of us don't learn that lesson, and a lot of relationships end, or if it's a marriage, ends up in divorce, right? So
Mhm.
um, if people learn how to relax with the chores or get inspired to do the chores because of a deeper meaning, then maybe people will be a little happier, more content.
So in college, in addition to journalism, I also majored in Asian studies, and religion was a part of it. And Zen philosophies and Buddhism was always real fascinating to me. That's my first exposure to it. Although I had a grand aunt who practiced, but I just didn't know much about it.
Hmm.
So I'm always fascinated by that practice. And I was just wondering with you, have you ever looked at doing more documentaries involving Zen and Buddhism? Because obviously it's something that maybe a lot of people know about but don't really know. But also, I think in this day and age, we're always talking about people and mental health these days, especially after the pandemic. And I think from what I know about the religion, it helps you find an inner peace that sometimes it feels like a lot of people are missing. So, out of curiosity, is that something you plan to do more of in the future? And your thoughts about just maybe doing more documentaries that focuses on Buddhism?
Hmm. Well, yeah, it's not, yeah, it's certainly, I'm open to that. I mean, there's maybe been passing comments. I think I'm still on the cleaning kick, but it's certainly Zen Buddhism. There can be an element of Zen Buddhism being integrated into that cleaning piece,
Hmm.
the more extended version. But um, yeah, let's see. Absolutely, I would be open to it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of the people I hang out with. what's really palatable about Zen, by the way, is that I know it's like it gets called an ism, right? And you know this
Mhm.
probably from your studies, but um, that that it's not an ism as a religion the way that most things are. Most isms are religions,
Mhm.
in that it doesn't require you to believe in a god. There is a Buddha figure as just more of like a this was a good guy who like was compassionate and
Right.
not like other figures, but he's not someone that you worship. He's more of like someone that's just a role model of like, or
Mhm.
just a reminder of your goodness. Just if you get out of your own way, right?
Right.
Your goodness will shine through. So there's actually a lot of folks who are Zen. They might be Zen practitioners, but also still actually maintain their original faith. They
Mhm.
just learn the Zazen like meditation technique. So yeah, like you're saying, I think mindfulness is the word that gets thrown all around a lot because people are still unsure about something that sounds like Buddhism.
Mhm.
But yeah, there does seem to be a lot of need for that.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah.
Yeah, we live in different times, I guess. Maybe we'll just leave it at that. Um, Now I know now you're doing something a little bit different. Well, not maybe not different, but you're instructing and you have an event coming up pretty soon. Can you talk about uh your new gig and what's coming up?
Yeah. So I have taught for a number of years. I taught as an adjunct at NYU doing cinematography and a production course one year, one summer. And then I taught at Five Towns College out in Long Island, and ran that program for a little bit. Um, but then, yeah, bouncing back and forth between the classroom and the industry. And I think finding this inner peace for myself of knowing I have this long-term documentary project I'm working on that expanding the cleaning
Mhm.
thing. That I think I was ready to say yes to being in the classroom more, knowing that I had this other thing that I was okay with it taking longer.
Mhm.
And um, so yeah, I joined the team at Arts High School in Newark, New Jersey.
Mhm.
There was the founding teacher of the program retired, and
Mhm.
so I got to step in and so the program currently is called Cinematography and Media, and it's yeah, the young folks of Newark, New Jersey, and what's really amazing about the school, I mean, the sort of historical element of it,
Mhm.
is that it's the nation's first public school for art,
Mhm.
um, and it's a magnet school, but I I don't know if all magnet schools are necessarily public schools. I don't know if every across the nation how that works, but this is a public school. The students do audition to join. They pick a major, and then so there's the visual arts majors where they do painting and sculpture and ceramics. There's the performing arts where there's you've got musicians and drama and dance. It just kind of goes on and on. There's like tons of art forms there, but then there's the sort of film program that's called cinematography and media, and we're small enough at the moment that it's just me teaching it.
Mhm.
um, but yeah, what we have coming up is on June 1st, is the Arts High School Film Festival, and it'll be a celebration of the students' work. This year, it's just the students who are in the program, but we'll see how things unfold down the line. And yeah, it's. I'm hoping that a lot of folks, a lot of local community shows up. That the nearby folks, but I've also we'll see, maybe some of my film friends from Manhattan, from Brooklyn, schlep out there, and join the party as well. But yeah, no, I'm really proud. The students, I've only been there for a short while, and it's been pretty amazing to see them really stepping up to like, wow, there's a film festival. We got to make our films. And since I've worked on Saturday Night Live, one thing we
Mhm.
do are the interstitials called we call them bumpers, or
Mhm.
lovingly we call them bumpies. And so having worked on the film unit, one of the pre-tape units, we always like squeeze one of those in at the end of the shoot, and it's whoever comes up with the most inspired idea based on our sketch for that week. And so sometimes they make the air, sometimes they don't. You know, it's a random thing, or not random. It's well curated. But we usually have these 3D letters of SNL,
Hmm.
and we put them into the scene, and we get a really cool shot, usually some sort of steady cam shot or whatever. And then, so I showed the students that, and I had someone on Etsy. My friend who has a 3D printer was busy, but I had someone on Etsy print up AHS for Arts High School and a
Hmm.
full Arts High School. And so
Hmm.
this week, and maybe trickling into next week, the students are given the mission to create their own bumpers for the film festival,
Oh,
um,
cool.
inspired by the SNL concept. But they just need to come up with like whatever feels the most inspired and awesome to them, and so we'll see how that unfolds. That'll be a fun thing between their movies. Yeah.
Well, I hope you mention to them that we are accepting submissions for next year's festival until the end of the year. So
Yeah.
if they are so bold, please have them submit, and we'll have Teddy take a look at them, and hopefully maybe Teddy will submit some of them because we'd love to bring you back, and we'd love to bring back your students over here to showcase their work. So I hope I hope we have that opportunity.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. Yeah, no, a student just turned in a documentary for my journalism class this today, and it was the cutest and most well, like, it was so beautifully put together about cats, just like it was great.
That sounds awesome. That sounds awesome. Yeah, I know we've expanded our program this year. We had a lot of students from the local high schools around here just submit some projects, and I think that'd be great if we expanded because I'm not a filmmaker, but I'm a journalist. I feel like journalism and documentary filmmaking are both the same ilk, and I just I love that we make it available to a lot of people who and a lot of communities who maybe have not had a voice before, to give them that voice to kind of share these stories that maybe that aren't available. So I hope your students will take us up on the offer and submit their films.
Yeah.
So you touched on a little bit your past life. You worked on Saturday Night Live, the big institution. Can you tell me like how long you worked there, and what was that experience like?
Yeah. Well, I want to say it was about maybe 2015 or 16, because it was more like I would come in and day play. So the way Saturday Night Live works for the pre-tape units is that a good chunk of the crew, the technicians, like the
Hmm.
camera crew, especially, we just come in on Fridays to shoot. So because it wasn't a regular full-time position, I kind of would come in once in a while, and then eventually became more regular. And then as I started juggling teaching, like adjuncting, and then so, so anyways, yeah, it's sort of a gradual, and it was always kind of a home base. I could kind of like step away, come back, um, and I think as with many things that are beautiful in this world, it feels like family and home. And so I was really fortunate that it became a nice grounding place for me. Really, just some of the top technicians in the industry, because what you have to pull off in that one day is
Hmm.
pretty unreal. Um, you know, uh, yeah, just some of the greatest production designers, the fantastic lighting crew, our cinematographer. For the unit I was on, there's 3 units, but the
Hmm.
unit that I was on for the longest in the past few years was is Lance Coons,
Hmm.
um, and yeah, I mean, we love all of the cinematographers we worked with, but he just like crushes it week after week in a way that's, yeah, it just makes you really excited to be a part of it. Um, we're a bunch of crazy, kooky New Yorkers who have our own strong personalities, grumpy grips and all, and but we love each other, and you get along, and uh, yeah, I don't know, it's fun.
And what were some of the highlights of the things that you worked on that we might know?
Well, most recently, since Barbie was such a big hit, Pete Davidson, when he came back, when we were able to come back, and he did the "I'm Just Pete," like the "I'm Just Ken" sketch.
I've been
Uh,
watching that one. That's that's fabulous. I love that.
Ridiculous. I love it so much. It's insane. So yeah, I've worked as a camera assistant a good chunk of my career. Shooting documentaries, being, a cinematographer in those realms, or a DP in those realms. But on that show, working as a camera assistant, and so Yeah, it's really inspiring to then get to like, I'm on the end of this crane and I'm pulling focus, swooping into Pete being Pete, in the way that he does that. Of course, my students love it. They love that I like worked on a sketch with him and I brought an old rug from a Totino's pizza roll commercial that we worked on that we're going to use on our film set as soon as we get some more furniture. And, they think that's cool. I don't know.
I think it's cool too.
Yeah, but that's one of my favorite sketches. And then I didn't work on this one since I'm at the school now, but my husband's on the show, and
Mhm.
he did the one they just did recently was the Papyrus 2
Oh
sketch,
yeah, I love that one
and
too.
yeah, the original Papyrus is just like knocks me dead every time. So I'm glad they brought that back. Um, yeah. So good. The inspiration, the energy. It's also really beautiful to see being on the behind the scenes part of it. I don't know what people watching the show think.
Mhm.
But being there, you really see how Lorne Michaels, the creator of the show, which this is the 49th season, that's about to wrap up. Um, yeah, I think this is the last week or next week. Um,
Something like that. Yeah.
but next year will be the 50th season. He started it, and what he does is he takes young creatives and comedians and people, and he creates this space for them to grow up, you know,
Mhm.
and it's really beautiful to be a part of that. Whether I'm sort of this, a camera assistant that grew up through it and has come in and out, and it's just that home base, or it's someone like Pete who kind of comes in and then has his own show and movie and all this stuff, and all the people that have, whether it's the cast that are the most visible or it's the technicians, we all kind of grow and come in and out of this institution that is yeah, it's a beautiful thing to be a part of.
And how does it's funny because I think of you at Saturday Night Live and I think about what your film was about. It seems like two opposites. Can you talk to me a little bit how working at Saturday Night Live affected you or influenced you as you made your film, and also some of the contrast? Because you know we know instinctually, even if we don't work there, that you're going 100 miles a minute or a second, just getting things together, and everything has to be precision. And where you did your film, where it's about peace, calm, and you had probably a little bit more time to work on it. Can you talk about the contrast and how one affected the other, or SNL affected making the film?
Yeah. Well, um, yeah, I think yeah, you're pointing towards the answer there with um thinking about the precision element of it.
Hmm.
Um, that being a documentary filmmaker, you have to be ready for anything at any moment.
Hmm.
So having the technical skill and experience to know to be ready for anything at any moment on SNL, because they'll just throw something at you. Or yeah, sure, you read the script, but what does that really mean when you're filming it in the moment? Um, they just say jump, and you say how high, but not in a bad way, not in an abusive way, just in a like, okay, great, let's do it, anything's possible. But you have to do something similar in documentary. I mean, obviously safety first, um but I don't think I've ever felt unsafe really on an SNL set. um, but on a documentary set, yeah, you have to be ready to say yes to whatever kind of floats your way. Your battery's got to be charged. You have to know exactly where you keep everything, so it becomes an extension of your body, and you can flow faster. And to be honest, that doesn't really that's it's not a contrast, because it just flows then with Zen practice, which is, you know, um, I don't know how to summarize that, but just the same thing of just being in that flow state.
Hmm.
um, People say
Fluidity,
like,
right?
"Oh, that's so zen," and they use that word, but like, what does that really mean?
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
maybe
I
that's
think
what
it's
the
about being
documentary's about.
Yeah, it's about being fluid, and being able to act and react when something happens. A lot of the filmmakers I've spoken to, we talk about documentaries, and sometimes you have to make a hard pivot or a big left turn sometimes because something will happen. Can you talk to me about one of your projects that you worked on, a documentary, or maybe beyond documentaries, where you've had to make a big pivot uh, during production? and
Hmm.
how it affected the film.
Hmm. Interesting one. Hmm. Well, I mean, to be honest, Dust to Light is kind of my first film since I was in film school.
Hmm.
I got out of school and I was working so much on other folks' films, getting really good at being a technician. Uh, I'm trying to think of where I really had to pivot. I mean, I made some other things in school that weren't for school, but um, I don't know, creatively, if I was a creative lead on something, but I mean, yeah, as far as pivoting, I've also gone
Hmm.
into the producing side of things in the past few years, production managing. So,
Hmm.
yeah, thanks for your patience as I sort of let that come back to my memory.
Sure.
Um, Producing is obviously all curveballs, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was production UPMing a pretty like fat budgeted like big size short film where all of a sudden, one person got COVID, the next person got COVID, and like how to keep a small crew safe and
Hmm.
how to handle all that, um, that's a pivot moment of, what do you do with that? When do you call it quits to make everyone safe? How do you take care of that? So I think anyone who's been on the production department in the past few years has had to deal with some sort of massive COVID pivot. And yeah, so I got to endure one of those, and I say get to because it's such a good experience of how to take care of your crew,
Hmm.
um, how to make the safe choices, and not put the movie before the people that are making the movie.
Well, that's really great. Sometimes you hear the other way, as people put the project before the people. So that's always great to hear. Also, let's look back on your experience in AmDocs. What you remember about it, and any highlights from AmDocs last year?
Yeah. Um, Yeah, I mean, there wasn't of the screening blocks that I got to see while I was there. There wasn't a weak one at all. There were no lemons, and it was like everything was just so smooth. So Teddy and your whole team, whoever's handpicking these, is a wonderful curator.
Hmm.
Um, it was a real highlight when Michael Moore zoomed in for the talk about I think it was Bowling for Columbine. That was the film he
Yep,
did that year.
20th anniversary.
Oh, watching that in that big beautiful theater, but like watching that in modern times, in the current times, is just still it hits so hard still.
Hmm.
Um and yeah, it was really wonderful to think back on as his career thus far, and how much as a documentary filmmaker you're giving yourself and sacrificing yourself in order not you want to take care of yourself too, but how much you put into your films, you give yourself over to the films. um, that was one thing my husband always really admires, that he loves, a big Tarkovsky fan, was in one
Hmm.
of his interviews he talked about, you have to give yourself over to the film. He said something to that effect.
Hmm.
um, and so, yeah, that was a moment for me when Michael Moore was talking. But it was also the screening block that my film got to be in, and one of the other filmmakers was there, and she talked. She just got so, like, her film is just so personal and offering those human stories that, um, yeah, maybe it's corny, but like it's the camera is that key to things, that it opens up doors to people's hearts that you couldn't that it's much harder to get to, or it's harder to share, right? But that
Hmm.
camera, if you can make people feel comfortable, forget the camera, be themselves,
Hmm.
um, then you can connect people who would never have met just by watching that film.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. This is gonna be our last question. We're starting to run out of time, but when you did your film, or even when you work, like you said, that these films can be very personal, and you're trying to get people to open up. Um, in order to do that, you have to establish trust. So what kind of things did you do to kind of make people feel comfortable and feel safe and trust you to open up and tell their stories?
Well, it helps to be a fellow Zen practitioner in my case.
Hmm.
Um, and we were recording an audiobook. and each chapter is read by a different person from around the world. And so it was just a microphone. Those interviews were just audio interviews, and then I had a bunch of verite footage of people cleaning. So people are much more comfortable with microphones, even though they were very like shy and reserved, tend to be on the more reserved side, um, as folks who do meditation sometimes can be. Um, but yeah, I think just having the microphone and not the camera in their face, that helped. It, that was just sort of the nature of what I was doing there. And then, um, but you have to really be a part of that community in a way. I mean, I am. That's kind of
Mhm.
the answer for me is you have to be
Yeah.
a part of the community. And that's, in December I was in Japan and had met a whole bunch of strangers at another Zen monastery, like going to do some meditation practice there. And you know, they just met me, and they're from all over the world too, but like they just met me. I'm only there for a couple weeks, but if you sit there in silence together,
Mhm.
and you show your true self in that way, when you just show up and how you are, people will notice. They're smart. Everyone will. Um,
Mhm.
and so if you just go forward with that pure heart and you show up and you do the hard work, whatever that means to you in that moment, people will open up naturally. Yeah.
Well, we're running out of time. I do want to say thank you so much for doing this. I really enjoyed this. You're one of my favorite people last year, and what you said about having the monastery. I felt that with you when we met, and we weren't sitting in silence per se. We just kind of ran into each other at parties, and just really enjoyed our moments together, just talking and stuff. And I will point out one more thing about the documentary filmmakers that you mentioned. One thing I love about the filmmakers here is, um, most of them know they're not going to make a lot of money from their documentaries, yet they still do it and they pour their hearts into it. And they're driven not by market research or what the box office will be. They're driven by their passion for their topic and the people that they cover. And that's what I really love about our film festival and our documentaries. And so I think that's very special too, and it's a very special group of people that are there. My 2 years experience has been fantastic, and one of them was, like I said, getting to meet you. But that's going to do it for now. But thank you so much, Erica. We hope that when you make your longer version of your film, that you will submit it, and we can have you
Yeah.
back in Palm Springs.
Thank you.
All
Yeah, I
right.
would love that. Thank you.
Okay, so just so people know, a reminder, next year's AmDocs will be March 27th through 31st. We are taking submissions now till the end of the year. So if you have a film, go and submit it. And if it's not quite done, just hurry up and try to get it in for us. We would love to see your films. Again, Erica, thank you so much. Love the interview. Thank you so much. And we'll catch you again soon, okay?
Thanks for having me.